John chapter 13 verse 7. Jesus answered and said to him, what I do you do not realize now, but you shall understand hereafter. Okay, so basically you have come to a decision, where it appears as such, that the only exception to this rule is no exceptions. Yes, therefore these irregularities may happen from time to time, given the following conditions appear subsequently, and stay within the scope of intended meaning. That being said, now, let me make this clear. And I'm only explaining this once. You piece of shit motherfucker. Really this early you found a moment to use an ad hominem for no reason at all. Yep, it appears that way. Therefore let's pivot back to the terms and conditions intentionally withheld from this contractual lexical agreement. So you sign agree, and everyone is happy. That's it, nothing more, nothing less. Say that one more time. Okay, so let's continue. So therefore, in the event that these circumstances take shape, the following is set forth in a concise, definitive, statement of facts establishing clear interpretation of the following procedure. Moreover, simply vocalizing certain words out loud may trigger legal action despite the foregoing thereof. Whereby with this section describes instances where in the event of the proximate exception clause scope of interpretation introduces irregularity beyond the scope of this contract, no exceptions clause exception in spite of the ongoing exceptions. No exceptions, then the following shall take place. Okay, wait, damn it. This doesn't make horse sense. I don't see as how this phenomenon you're describing, in the event where the exception clause currently exists, can shape-shift into something irregular. That sounds illogical. I can conceptually logicate a contract written in paper, abruptly and spontaneously modify itself, or change its molecular structure into an irregular polyhedral shape, or spontaneously shape-shifts into something that introduces irregularities occurring from time to time. How the fuck did you reason that? There is nothing in this contract that mentions shape-shifting spontaneity occurring from time to time, specifically. Sure, it happened one time, but that is beyond the scope of this conversation, and if it did occur from time to time it would be well documented. Therefore in this context it's referring to the ongoing no exceptions, exception notwithstanding. That's it, nothing more. Okay, fair enough. This better not be one of those stupid fair trials. It most definitely isn't, but it may be subject to interpretation at any time, and without your consent. Really? Yeah, really, and without a warrant. But that's only if certain irregularities take shape. Okay, sure. So the following is set forth in a concise, definitive, statement of facts establishing clear interpretation of the following, which is notwithstanding the foregoing exception to the previous exception set forth against non-negotiable non-disclosure no exceptions contracts. However, given the irregularities existing notwithstanding the following, that is if and only if, notwithstanding the foregoing second exception is indeed conflicting with the previous no exception clause. If that's the case where the following set forth introduces irregularity beyond the scope of this contracts, then automatically, without delay, without exceptions, and without notice, without regard for your constitutional rights, without regard of the opinion of that stupid piece of shit thing you call you life, or without knowledge of this event from time to time, the contract shall still be enforced and non-negotiable, whereby that means is basically, there is no exceptions to this rule. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less happens. You're serious, aren't you? Okay, so then by you saying those exact words, that infers satisfying the triggering, or activation of the second exception to no exceptions no exceptions clause notwithstanding, where the foregoing binding exception and agreement non-negotiable disagreement section C applies, and therefore, is at most nothing more, and nothing less, only exception special case to take exception with account for notwithstanding the foregoing exception does indeed stand, and doesn't foregoes. This happens from time to time. That sounds idiotic. How can this contract stand with the absence of legs? Dude, how does this even happen? It happens from time to time. I literally uttered justification for this moments ago. So just sign the fucking contract already. Fuck, damn it. You know you're really gonna piss me off, you fucking bitch. Look. So you can just nod your head in any direction, or blink your eyes, or simply just breath for 2 seconds continuously, and that will be acceptable as a valid, authenticated signature. Don't worry about what it means, just sign this shit already. So that makes me not want to sign it, at least without careful consideration, and let me inspect it further. I have interesting gadgets I want to test and scan the contract, so let's go. Or how about let's not do that, and instead, let's take this clear, concise, definitive, non-ambiguous, non-misleading, and non-fraudulent, non-aggressive, and free from prejudice approach or arrangement for what it is, a hidden notarized consent form, where in writing you waive all your rights. Am I getting punned? Generally speaking, no. Am I an inspector general? Not necessarily. Do I have gadgets? Sure. Why you couldn't go 1 minute without a stupid pun? Answer me. Dude, no. I'm not trying to advise or use deceptive fraudulent grammar in any fictitious manner to simulate a legal process with hidden criminal intents. I'm not a pirate. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. I did not even ask that. You know, for some reason this makes me think you are, mate. Mate? Are you seriously taking this time right now for a goddamn pun? Look, the sea is nice, but still don't take my advice. Look, you pussy fuck boy, just sign the fucking contract, you scared motherfucker. I'm not gonna sign it until I read it. This makes no goddamn sense. I don't see purpose. Come on, dude. Why not? It's understandable. Just say on your own volition that you understand your rights and waive your jurisdiction to the court. Also, with knowledge and full understanding, you require no interpreter. And moreover, you will promise to appear for sure. Furthermore, you agree to curfew with ankle monitor and software downloaded into your phone that monitors screen indefinitely. Furthermore, you are a fucking pussy for the remainder of your sentencing. What the fuck? So you don't try and fucking escape or recklessly abandon this contract. And by commitment you do this by surety, which in this case you agree notwithstanding, and will comply, because it's written on this paper, damn it. Furthermore, you agree not to disagree to commit and bind over your own person or vessel as collateral for the debt sent against you. Since you're considered a maritime product, which has a cargo of thinking, you may be transported and shipped as chattel or stock in exchange for monetary compensation, which this is for the benefit of the court and for my account, which is coincidental, my checking account called court, notwithstanding specifically, which you agreed without knowing last week when you said a specific 3 words, which triggered the activation function on the smart contract. So now you know. That's it, nothing more, nothing less. That contract sound wildly stupid. I still need to look over it before I consider committing to anything. So don't even think about not appearing, because once you agree to the terms, there's no renegotiation or exceptions to this rule, notwithstanding the foregoing no exceptions exception clause. Furthermore, you understand that by not appearing you become an enemy of the state. A bank arrest warrant will be issued and more charges can and will be put against you for contempt. But since notwithstanding previous exceptions, where you agree to the enhanced criminal charges, and wanted dead or alive bounty can and will be placed to capture you and bring you in which in this case there will be $10 million reward. That's it, nothing more, nothing less. To me, if I was in your position, even though I can't give you legal advice, I'll say this. This sounds like a great plea deal, and you're getting it for a bargain. What the fuck? No, a bargain. I don't see how this is even beneficial, or why I would even consider this. I don't know, dude, this foundation is not even stable. But wait just a goddamn second. And please, for the love of Isis, hold your horses. Are you saying you want me to stall time? No, I'm not saying that. Are you saying you're Al-Qaeda? Okay, but this doesn't even have any standing. No, not necessarily, but fact of the matter is. However, given the current state of circumstances, will you please waive your preliminary examination of this contract and in front of a camera, say, and assert that in your own volition and understanding, you declaring to the court you are a U.S. citizen, and found the foundation of this is stable, and promise to appear at a later time upon release. I'm not doing any of those things. That sounds ludicrous. Let's go over this notwithstanding the exception. So please, for the love of Yahweh, please move or get out the way. You son of a bitch. You just punned me. Yep. Okay, so how could this be an exception if the second exception says that notwithstanding the foregoing exceptions there's no exception? Yeah, that is the only exception. That's it, nothing major. Wait. Well, since notwithstanding the foregoing is still to be the exception, even with the exception, that is notwithstanding the foregoing be the only exception is simply not necessary, and doesn't reason anything. So therefore the contract stands. No exceptions. Now get the fuck out. Take your worthless ignorant piece of shit person you call yourself, and leave my sight before I kill you, goddammit. Yikes. Okay, but wait just a goddamn second. Why then no exceptions? I'll tell you why no exceptions. That may be true. But since with the exception notwithstanding the foregoing no exceptions exception clause notwithstanding still foregoes, and still stands, then in that case we are completely fucked. Or in this case only you specifically in particular. Let me explain this further. So if you re-examine paragraph 8 section C, that will explain these circumstances, clearly without ambiguities. Okay, really well, where is it then? Unfortunately, paragraph 8 section C may be found within the scope of another contract, which scope covers outside the boundaries of the previous contract thereof. In any case, that is beyond the scope of both previous contracts. Therefore, to put it simply, that means is unfortunately what you're trying to cross-examine at the moment is not accessible, and cannot be fully explained at the current moment. This may be concerning, however, fact of the matter is this occurs not because the contract may clearly show fraudulent conveyance of grammar and misleading deceptive practices from time to time. Most cases this is not true, rather not true, since in this special case, and with no exceptions notwithstanding. That's it. That concludes this first appearance. Okay, I don't think that makes sense at all. Something don't sound correct about that contract. Yes, but that is if and only if, unless of course notwithstanding the foregoing be the only exception. For the no exceptions, however, notwithstanding says we can make no exceptions. So sorry about that. Your lawyer should have contacted you. So, therefore we can make no exceptions except unless notwithstanding the foregoing exception be the one and only no exception. You're fucking joking, right? That doesn't say a goddamn thing. That doesn't mean anything. Well, that may be the case. However, I'm gonna say this one more time, clearly, concisely, and definitively what this says, without ambiguity, and without trickery, interprets as follows: unless of course notwithstanding the foregoing no exception be the only no exceptions. Except notwithstanding the foregoing does in fact except the following, where in this instance on Tuesdays, before 10 o'clock p.m. in spite of all the exceptions, there is no exception, and that exception alone proves this rule, and satisfies the rules of criminal procedure. You fucking have lost your mind. That doesn't prove anything, and that was totally ambiguous, and totally opposite of clear, concise, and definitive of what is being implied. Well, according to this well-written contract, it sounds like there is an exception. However, despite even no exception does indeed accept what can be accepted, that would prove the exception is unfortunately non-negotiable, or even considered to be open to discussion. Since this is a legal matter, and am not your attorney, it would be somewhat unprofessional and negligent on my behalf to allow such exceptions to stand notwithstanding. Therefore, in simple terms, you must sign over your assets and agree to waive all your rights, and give temporary power of attorney to the court for reasons beyond the scope of this conversation. You're a goddamn idiot. That doesn't say anything. What the fuck? I mean, it sounds like a good plea deal if you ask me. Wow, is this true, you stupid fucking bitch? Is this a good plea deal? Yeah, it's still true notwithstanding the foregoing exceptions. Dude, that means that is no longer true in spite of the foregoing exception to the no exceptions exception. May be unacceptable, but only if and only if in this event occurring the following no longer foregoes the exception notwithstanding still stands. In any case notwithstanding. Explain that. Every single word and term. Okay, I'll tell you this. First off, I do not know what the fuck that means. And secondly, you should probably talk to your lawyer. I can't officially give you any legal advice that would put me in position of contempt. Well, if that's the case, then I'll carefully assess what this is and what it isn't and what means from time to time. That is, unless of course it does not, which the specific instance happens to not occur, that is because it's Friday, and since it does not withstand the foregoing exception no exception predicament, consequently this is fortunately the only exception notwithstanding the foregoing only exception. That's it. Nothing more? Very easily understandable. Really? I'm not falling for this stupid trap. So anyways, back to the contract clause notwithstanding. Basically, after otherwise being fully informed, and simultaneously in spite of, all the foregoing events, by default the contract cannot be enforced, and neither party shall be held liable with complying with the terms. If and only if the second exception to no exceptions still foregoes notwithstanding the foregoing no exceptions. Exception clause. So that says exactly what it means, for this contract is indeed not negotiable. No exceptions. Except. So to put it simply, without intentionally withholding hidden information, and drifting out of context, in attempts to overcomplicate the foregoing processes, are a non-negotiable contract. For it to be void and null, or to make an exception for the non-exception exception notwithstanding the foregoing exception no exceptions clause, you must pay the court $100 fee, for the continuance of contract and for the filing. Fees you didn't agree to, but since you missed the deadline on appealing this action, you now have to give up your house. That's it. Nothing major at all. Dude, all that fucking stupid cunning arrangement of words is just a fancy, if any, way of saying nothing. Well, sure, it appears that way, however. It's a bit more complicated than that in the totality of circumstance. What do you mean? It means this, and this only. That if and only if both parties decided they don't want a contract anymore, that is the only exception to negotiation. That's it. But in this context, given the current political climate and considering all the risk factors, along with other miscellaneous material not explicitly mentioned within the scope of these terms. That's it, nothing more, nothing less. So what you're saying is nothing foregoes, that's the only exception by default. Because both parties don't want a contract anymore. 100%. So yeah, it does appear to behave that way. So the fact of the matter is nothing. Yeah, that is the whole purpose of this meeting, is to have no purpose. That's all. Unbelievable. You're lucky I don't beat you down for being such a fucking stupid idiot. And for wearing those Crocs. Hey, okay, but you're not even a real lawyer. Possibly, and more like an attorney's. I'm just practicing law. Yes, sure, you got it, and it appears to interpret just like that. Dude, what the fuck does that even fucking mean? Now you're just making shit up and you're making me sign it? No, not necessarily. That is totally up to you, of course. And the subsections A and B, it's your choice according to clause notwithstanding exception. You have rights protected by the Constitution, however. Or in this case you did. That was until you gave them all up by hidden assumption. Where in this instance you were not cognizantly aware of consenting to a full investigation, without warrant and without probable causes. I can't physically make you do anything. It's totally done by commitment. Everyone knows this, come on. And if you don't, well, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Well then, fuck your contract clause. And fuck your stupidly written contract. Hey, moreover, fuck your stupid fat fucking Santa Claus idol you worship once a year in exchange for gifts. Come on, just fucking sign this shit. Don't be a fucking pushover. And don't be a fucking pussy motherfucker. You really acting like a scared motherfucker right now. And fuck your stupid fucking no exceptions notwithstanding the foregoing exception no exception clause. Okay, anything else? And fuck your kids. Really? Now your wish mal upon my livestock. Sure. Well, guess joke's on you what, for I have sold my kids at the market and made a great profit. So you're saying you sell kids for profit? Well, sure, everyone knows that, and I have a license. Well, fuck your stupid license. And moreover, it sounds like you put this Santa fat fuck on a pedestal, and Santa Claus is really pushing for your children to sit on his lap and take pictures. And answer me this, does the Santa Claus take pictures and then save little children pictures on files on his laptop? Really, that sounds like a pun. Yeah, it sounds like Santa is a pedophile. No pun intended. Sure. Yes or no? Answer me, you fucking bitch. Fuck your contract clause. Okay, so you're saying in your own volition, on the record, that you're also putting up the idea for consideration and promise to appear at a later time for a preliminary examination, and that you are a U.S. citizen. That is the most important part. No. Wait, what? Fuck you. Where did you get his contract from? Sounds like you got that from a scribe. You got that from Oscar, didn't you? Didn't you, pussy? From the Galileo Church for the Gay Watchmen. No, the father whom they call to as dad. Dude, no, I have never been there before. I told you I'm not Catholic or Jewish. I prefer to worship demons on Thursday instead of Sunday. So I go on Thursdays. I'm a Jehovah's Witness church member. Everyone know that. Moreover, I got this from a hot dog stand in Babylon. That sounds baloney. Furthermore, that contract clause is just babbling. Really, well, it sounds now like I have no choice now, and that is if and only if the only exception notwithstanding the past time existing and the future connotations. And in this context this would be the only choice, with no exceptions, thereby according to subsection A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and L, M, N, O, P, this would be the only exception. By default either way except notwithstanding the foregone exceptions are no longer acceptable is negotiable. There is no exceptions to this. It appears that the only exception. We cannot negotiate those terms. Wow, this is irony. This has nothing to do with a contract. This is about irony. You motherfuck. You really had to go that far for irony. Yep, and that is about it. No more irony. Unless, of course, notwithstanding the foregoing events happens from time to time where irony does not exist. Yeah, and in this context it will be simply because I'll fucking kill you. And not because in spite of the foregoing irony exceptions. No exceptions. Or because by default exceptions exist notwithstanding the foregoing no exceptions clause. And not because of that either. But because this irony you speak of won't exist anymore coming out of your stupid fucking mouth. Because I'm gonna get a bat and beat the fucking shit out of you for wasting my time, goddammit. Yikes. Okay. So this is probably a good time for me to make my exit. Coincidentally, this was all ironical. By default. I didn't decide it would be this way. Looks like I better waste no time. Really, somehow, like you were not planning it all along for irony to be the punchline. Like you do time and time again, notwithstanding the foregoing exception of no irony is still irony, no exception. I'm starting my koa and getting out of here. Why? Because the fact that irony, by its own definition, does not contradict or showcase dichotomy, are a paradox. Really? Yeah, really? Irony in this context being of a paradoxical nature, by its own definition, is not contradicting itself, meaning, the definition of irony alone explains it concise, definitive, and without contradiction. There is nothing ironic about that. That is wildly ironic as ever. If irony's own definition would contradict its own definition, then this would be ironic, by its own definition. But since it doesn't, it still is wildly ironic, by its own definition. Really, what do you mean by its own definition? Literally, since its name, by default, is irony, or ironic, and by essence alone, the fact that it doesn't contradict itself but give a non-ambiguous or paradoxical definition, is wildly more ironic in spite of it, by default, being ironic. So either way, ironically, irony notwithstanding the foregoing irony, is still irony, no exceptions, by default. Even if no irony exists, it still does. While so you're saying it exists as not existing. Even though no irony exists, it still does because non-existence exists. And non-existence happens all the time. Even there is nothing existing with the essence of non-existence, but still takes up time to exist as that which it ain't. You're fucking telling me that we are wasting non-existent time, and that by default we are not wasting anything that doesn't exist. It's in fact both not occurring and occurring is obvious. But there is no way to prove this because there is nothing there to prove, and that is the proof alone. Fuck this. Fuck your hand basket and your God. To hell? Or your Mormon God from hell. Fuck your church. Well, after all this now you're cursing my hand basket and the particular members of my church organization. Are you happy now? Did that make you feel better? Did this make you feel holy? Shall we continue, Anne? Let's just keep poking holes at it. Are you satisfied with the outcome, or do you want to go ahead and throw another punchline? Don't you mean? A pun line. Unbelievable. You really are a dumb fucking son of a bitch, you know that. And if you were next to a furnace, I would throw you in there. Yikes. Okay, this is probably a stopping point. It appears I shall leave now. You know what? Fuck your stupid couch at the church. Okay, are you finished? Or shall I wait more? Yes. Now wait just one goddamn second. Okay, Anne, hold your horses before you break its back, partner. More puns. You really are a piece of fucking shit, and now you're cursing the couch because it's in the women's bathroom. Any else you would like to ask? Is that why you work at the male strip club? Zeus Patter XXX. Dirty House Saloon. Is it or not? Yes or no?